to show you how to make this simple Argyle pattern with fondant. Now, Argyle is usually two or more colors, and you could just Google Argyle pattern to see what pictures come up to find what pattern that you like. I got my cake out of the refrigerator. That icing is nice and hard, so I'm not going to mess it up. Now I have my diamond cutters. I want to see which ones that I want to use. This one looks like it's going to be a little too small. I usually like to have two diamonds that fit from the top to the bottom. So this one looks like it's a little better. So I start at the bottom and there's one, and then I move it up and it meets right at the top. So that's going to be the one that I'm going to use. Now I rolled out some fondant pretty thin, and this is marshmallow fondant, and I do have Tylose powder mixed into it. The Tylose powder is going to help it set harder and make it much easier to work with. And I have a cutting board here, and I'm just going to cut a ton of different triangles. Nope, these are diamonds. So I did it. I have a bunch of different colors here. So I have white, and I did the light blue. I did a little bit of green, and then I also did navy blue, just according to the colors and the pattern that I wanted to do. Yours might be a little different depending on the pattern that you choose. And now I need to cut some of these in half. So the navy blue ones and the green ones, I'm making sure that I cut exactly in half, going from corner to corner right in the center. You want to get these exactly in half so they fit on the cake. Now I'm getting a little bit of water behind it, and then I'm starting in the very front of the cake, and I want to line all of these starting at the top and then work my way down, because I'm going to put a border on the bottom and it's going to cover any voids that are in there. So again, I'm making sure that that light blue touches the point in the green and the green touches the point in the light blue. I'm just using my fingers to get this into place. And I'm using a little bit of water behind each one to stick it down. And then I'm doing white in the center, and then I'm going to start the other color pattern, which is going to be green in the middle and then navy blue on the top, and make sure that aligns with the very top of the cake, and then navy blue at the bottom, and make sure that bottom point meets the green point. So I want it all to be aligned with the very top of the cake, like I said before, and I'm just going to repeat the pattern going around the cake. So do you see the top row has green, navy, and then there's white, white, and then light blue, green, and green, navy at the bottom. So I start in the very front of the cake and I do the pattern until I get to the very back, because it never meets up in the back. Sometimes it does. And then I go to the very front of the cake and I'm going to build the pattern to the back around the other side. I like to do it this way. That way you can have the exact pattern facing the very front of the cake and it looks nice and even. Now when you get to the back, you can see that there's a little void here. So we got to fill that in with some fondant. So I found this diamond cutter, and that is pretty much the size of that void that's in there in the corner. So I'm just cutting it out of fondant, trying to get it to the correct size to fill in that space. And I need to cut that top off a little flat, and that looks pretty good. So I just want that top section on there. Got a little bit of water behind it and put that down. And that bottom part was sticking out a little too much, so I'm trimming it with my X-Acto knife. Now I need to take some green fondant and do the same thing. So I hold it up, try to get it to fit, and just fill in that void. And I'm going to do the same thing, trim the excess at the bottom, and then fill the bottom part with the navy. And that's the back of the cake, so it doesn't match up. That's okay. Now I'm taking that same diamond cutter that I cut these fondant diamonds out of, and I'm putting it in between all of these to get this Argyle pattern in here. I'm using the diamond cutter just so I get even lines. Yes, you can use a ruler or you can freehand it, but this just ensures that I get an even pattern around the entire thing. So I'm just going around the entire cake, and now I'm going to take my Dresden tool. Use the curve of the Dresden tool. Do not use the point, because you don't want to poke a hole in the fondant. And I'm just going over all of these lines about 2 times just to deepen it and give that Argyle look to it. You can see my cake is getting soft. The icing is soft. You look at the top. Do you see how it's bubbling when I press into it? I will fix that a little later, but this gets a little tricky when your cake gets a little soft. So I want to press hard enough to transfer this line into here, but not too hard that I distort all of that icing underneath. And once I finish in one direction, then I flip to the other direction, making sure I go over each line about 2 times with my Dresden tool. And in the back, you just need to make sure it doesn't match up. So I'm just trying to get it to look as nice as possible. And then I'm going to take my fondant smoother, and I'm trying to push all of these against the cake, making sure that everything is nice and straight and vertical. And then you don't see me doing this, but I'm running that spatula under hot water and just gently pressing down at all of this icing that has bubbled from me pressing the Dresden tool into the fondant. So I'm just trying to make it look nice and pretty. And then I rolled out this fondant border really long. I'm taking my ribbon cutter and just cutting a thin ribbon. And I notice a blowout formed underneath the fondant and the icing. So I'm just taking a needle tool and poking a hole underneath that fondant and pressing that back down. I freaking hate when those blowouts happen, just making sure that that is nice and even. And then I'm getting a little bit of water on a paintbrush. Make sure that I keep it low because that border is not too thick. And I'm starting in the very back and just wrapping this around where it meets in the back. I'm going to cut it and just press that seam together. And then I want to run my finger over it and my fondant smoother, just making sure that it is pressed against the cake, and take my palette knife and press that down, making sure it's nice and even and it's touching the cake drum. And then to finish it off, I'm just getting a little bit of non-toxic glue on the cake drum and on the back of that ribbon and wrapping it around there. And then where it overlaps, get a little bit more glue down and press it down. And then I'm just going to run my finger over it one more time for good measure. And here is the Argyle cake. Now, when I used to do Argyle, I would do the dotted lines like this, and it took forever and I felt like it looked a little sloppy. So I stick with doing it this way. I just feel like it gives it a nice polished look.